Hello, everybody. It looks like something's a little bit off with my orientation. Let's see. So my phone will not allow me to go live like this. Give me just 1 second. Let's see how I can make this work. Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining. Thank you. I'm trying to figure something out with my orientation. Give me just 1 moment. Behind the scenes live. Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining. I know it feels like Mercury retrograde, but Mercury isn't retrograde. So bear with me just 1 second. While I turn things around at the very last minute. This is a lot of fun. I do hope. Oh, thank you. You're all very, very kind. Now, this looks better. It looks like YouTube. Thank you, honey. It looks like YouTube likes it a lot more when I go live in vertical format rather than landscape format. So here we are. Lots of love. Thank you, everyone, for joining. I know that I didn't give any sort of like heads up. I know that I didn't announce that I was going live in advance. It is a little bit of an impromptu live. I thought I would take this opportunity to share some of my experiences with my Saturn return. I know that I promised I would do this a while ago because my Saturn return ended in March. So that's quite a while ago. And here we are. It is September. And I haven't yet shared my Saturn return stories. So here we are. Bună seara for those of you who are Romanian speakers. Can we do a video about Simona Halep's Saturn return? I mean, off the top of my head, I think Simona also has her Saturn in Aquarius, just like me. She's born in 91, if I'm not mistaken, and yeah, it's brutal by the looks of it. Hi, Vera. Thank you for joining. So, folks, I'm just gonna give people one more minute for them to join. I do appreciate that you've joined us tonight, and I do appreciate your patience. And the way that this is gonna work, or what I had in mind at least, was the following. I thought I would share my experiences with my Saturn return first and foremost, and then you can ask me questions. I mean, you can obviously leave your questions in the comments in the meantime, but I'm not gonna go through the questions from the very, very get-go, just because I'm probably gonna get distracted and not get to the very end of my tale. So I am going to take questions a little bit later, after I take you through what I have prepared for tonight, because I do have notes, very Saturn-like, very, very organized. I have put together notes. I had to think about what was going on in the past 3 years, and I made a list. Again, very Saturnian. So here we are. Hello, Emily. Hello, Cindy. Let's see how I can make this look a tiny bit better. Can I make it look a tiny bit better or not really? Let's see. Thank you for bearing with me. No, it just doesn't want to do what I'm doing. So here Here we are. We had a little bit of a technical problem to start with because I was trying to do the live in the landscape format and it did not allow me to do it. So that's that's the minor bump in the road that we encountered. Hello Vanessa from Portugal. Hi everyone, thank you for joining. It's very, very good to have you here. So we're going to talk Saturn tonight. So we're going to be very... Yes, I am an Aquarius. I am an Aquarius, and I do also have my Saturn in Aquarius, and Saturn in Aquarius is in domicile. So it is indeed, Aquarius is one of the signs that is ruled by Saturn. You could say that Saturn transiting Aquarius and Capricorn is likely to be probably one of the most, I mean, these are likely to be probably two of the most, how should we call them, maybe constructive or productive transits for everyone, not just for me, but for everyone in general, because Saturn feels very good in Aquarius and in Capricorn. So its energy is at home there. A book recommendation for a beginner from Sweden. How different are the effects for the Saturn return or Saturn in your rising sign? These are all very, very good questions, and I am going to go back to them. I am going to come back to them in just a little bit. I think we are ready to kick this off. So thank you for joining me tonight for my Saturn return update. It's been a while. It's been quite a few months since my Saturn return ended. So my natal Saturn, folks, is placed in Aquarius. I'm also an Aquarius sun. I also have Mercury in Aquarius, so I do have quite a bit of Aquarius energy in my natal chart. Saturn is actually the final dispositor in my chart. What does that mean? It means that it rules pretty much, if you go down the rulership trail, it rules pretty much everything. So Saturn is the big boss in my chart. Everyone in my chart, all planets respond to Saturn, which is why maybe generally Saturn returns are very impactful anyway, but to me it felt extra significant, I'd say, because Saturn contacted so many planets, so many energies, and I'm going to share what happened when Saturn conjunct my Sun, for instance, when Saturn conjunct my Mercury, and so on. But before we do that, let's talk timings. So I'm someone who was born in February 91. And those of you who are watching this, who were born between the 6th of February 91 until the 20th of May 1993, and also between the 29th of June 93 until the 28th of January 94, you folks also have Saturn in Aquarius. So you also ended your Saturn return in March of this year. Now, there are some people who went through their second Saturn return this, who ended their second Saturn return this year. These are the people who were born between the 3rd of January 62 until the 23rd of March 64, and also between the 16th of September 64 until the 15th of December 64. So you folks ended your second Saturn return this year in March. Now, Saturn transited Aquarius. So that's the period that we consider for folks who have Saturn in Aquarius, like myself. Saturn transited Aquarius between the 21st of March 2020 until the 1st of July 2020. Then it went back into Capricorn for a little bit, and then returned to Aquarius between the 16th of December 2020 until the 7th of March 2023. So officially you could say my Saturn return, our Saturn return, for those of you who also have Saturn in Aquarius, my Saturn return started in March of 2020 and it ended in March of 2023. Now, folks who are watching us and who have their natal Saturn in Pisces, you are now going through your Saturn return until the beginning of 2026. Saturn spends approximately 2.5 to 3 years in a sign. And Let's put it this way. Saturn is not playing around. What is the Saturn return about in general? Any return, any planetary return in our natal chart is, you could say, the beginning of a new cycle. At each Saturn return, we build the foundation, or we are expected, or we are pushed or forced a little bit, because sometimes it feels like we don't really have a choice. We are expected to build a solid foundation for the next 3 decades, because Saturn takes approximately 3 decades to go around the zodiac. So it's going to return to the same position approximately 30 years later, 29.5 years later. So the Saturn return is a time of setting, building a solid foundation. It is a time of hard work. It is a time of restructuring and reorganizing our lives, depending on where the Saturn return is happening in our natal charts. Saturn in the natal chart is the planet of duty, of responsibility, of hard work, of challenges in the 3D material reality, of obstacles. So I'm not going to mince my words here. I'm just going to put it out there. We're not going to sit around here and pretend that Saturn is this sort of like happy-go-lucky energy that is just kind of like having the best of time and here for like some lighthearted, casual stuff. No. Saturn is all about seriousness, responsibility, hard work, effort, duty, burden, rules, structures, hardship. Did I say effort? I'm going to say effort again. Time, patience, discipline. So that's what Saturn is all about. The Saturn return reinforces the themes of our natal Saturn. You could also say that at the time of the Saturn return, we become aware of the concrete work that we have to do in this lifetime. When I say work, I'm not necessarily referring just to our professional lives. I'm also referring to the areas of our life, the sectors of our life that require patience, discipline, that require us to take them very, very seriously, that require us to say, listen, I might not be very good at this. This is not very easy. I feel like I may be weak in this sector. I feel like I may be not good enough. I feel like I've been judged in this sector of my life. I feel like I've experienced challenges and delays, and still, Saturn says, nah, you can't just give up. You can't just put this to the side. You can't just pretend that this aspect of your life doesn't exist. Because if you do that, then you're going to probably encounter some very, very real obstacles that represent a blockage in your life. A blockage from enjoying life, a blockage, a sense of feeling imprisoned, of feeling stuck, of feeling stagnant in a particular sector. And when it comes to expressing a particular type of energy, I'd say. So at the Saturn return, we become aware of where we need to put effort, where we need to work hard, where we need to keep our nose to the grindstone, where we need to be very practical, pragmatic, and realistic. And also, and I feel like not a lot of people talk about this, there's something about the Saturnian energy that requires us to rely on ourselves, that requires us to rely on our own resources, that requires us to prove ourselves to ourselves, I'd say. Even when it comes to, I don't know, a Saturn in Libra transit, and Saturn is exalted in Libra. So Saturn really likes to be in Libra. You could say, okay, your duty is towards your duty is towards your spouse, your duty is towards your partner, your duty is towards achieving fairness and balance and a sense of harmony in your life. Your duty is towards your relationships in general. Still, it is your duty. It is you who has to do the work. So the Saturn return is a time of really doing the work that we have to do in this lifetime. We are probably going to face a major obstacle. We are probably going to face difficulties in the sector where we have to put in the effort. We are probably going to feel like we are isolated in some shape or form. We are probably going to feel like we can't really bypass whatever obstacle is laid out in front of us. The Saturn return is obviously also a time of maturation, especially the first Saturn return. So the one that happens around the end of our 30s and kind of like beginning of our 30s, depending on when you were born in the Saturn cycle. By the way, I do consider the Saturn return to be the entire, almost like 3-year long period when transiting Saturn is going through the sign that it was placed in at the time of your birth. So regardless of whether your Saturn is at 28 degrees or like 0 degrees of Aquarius, let's say for instance, I consider your Saturn return to be the entire period when Saturn transits through Aquarius, if that makes sense. So it's a process, I'd say. Look, Crystalline Alchemist shared that she had her first child during her Saturn return. There you go. So increased duties, increased responsibilities in the 3D material reality. The Saturn return is the time of maturity, so we have to act as adults. I feel like that's always funny when we say it. What does that mean? What does that mean? So we have to be the responsible adult in the room, you could say. And if we're not acting as adults, if we're not stepping into our own authority, which the Saturn return does ask us to do, it is the time when we realize that authority is not, many of us actually realize it at the time, maybe some of us realize it earlier, but most people realize at the time of the first Saturn return at least, that we are our own sources of authority. It's not our parents, it's not our teachers, it's us. So we have to be the ones that decide, listen, I'm in charge of my life, and that does come with responsibilities. You can't blame your parents anymore. You can't blame your teachers. You can't blame anyone else. It's like whatever you decide, you are your own boss. You are your own source of authority in your life. And you're going to have to be the one that deals with the consequences. So Saturn is telling us, listen, you're in charge. You have to make decisions. You have to reorganize your life. You have to let go of some things. You have to work on some things. You have to make a commitment. The Saturn return generally is about a commitment. It's like, okay, choose a path and work on it and really put effort into it. And sometimes you're going to be bored, and sometimes it's going to be really hard, and you're going to make mistakes, and it's going to feel difficult, and you might have breakdowns, and you might feel inadequate. And I realize I'm not painting this in a very pretty picture, but at the end of the Saturn return, we might look back and say, there's not a lot that scares me anymore, because you've been through the concrete difficulties of life. You've seen hard stuff. You've seen what it means to make a mistake. You've seen what it means to be responsible for your life, to take accountability, I think is the way to say it. You've seen what it means to commit to something and at the same time release and let go of various other possibilities and options. I think I read it somewhere in a book. They said that the Saturn return is also a time to make a commitment and to give up on some dreams. I want to call them fantasies, maybe not dreams. Generally, our young kind of like adult years are years of possibility. There's like the possibility to do this, the possibility to do that. We have options, and we always in life have options. But during the Saturn return in particular, unless we commit to something, it might feel like we are not doing our Saturn return right. Is there a right way to do the Saturn return? Yes. Be real, be honest with yourself. Admit where you feel like your work is and where you feel like, I'm not that good here. I'm not that developed in this area. I always keep on bumping into issues in this area, or I feel like this is where I need to zoom in and build something, build a long lasting achievement. So it is a time of being very honest with ourselves. It's not going to be pretty many times. I'm just going to say it. We might feel like we'd rather do anything but commit to a certain path. It might feel like this is not fun. It might feel like we are ill prepared. We might realize how much we are lacking in a certain area. Saturn is also the planet of consequences. So you get out of it what you put into it, I'd say. It is generally during the Saturn return, the first Saturn return, that we set the foundation for our adult years. And during the second Saturn return, we may very well reap what we have sown. I'm going to give you an example. Let's say you've got a Saturn in your second house and your Saturn return is happening in your second house of income. So you got to learn to make money in this lifetime. You got to learn to build your financial security and stability. It might feel dull. It might feel boring. It might feel hard. You might have a hard time valuing or appreciating yourself. Nevertheless, that is where your tangible, concrete work in this lifetime is. So what would I advise a person with Saturn in the second house? I'd say, be very serious, get very serious about learning how to manage, plan, organize, structure your finances. Get very serious about saving money. Get very serious about being disciplined with money. I would also say develop your Saturnian talents, because they are likely to pay you. They are literally likely to pay you when you get a job, for instance. So someone with Saturn in the second house might get paid for being a good manager in general, depending on what sign Saturn is in. You can manage people, you can manage resources, you can manage all sorts of things. There's no two ways about it. I'd say you can't really avoid it. So you might as well master it. And the good news about Saturn is that when we do put in the time, the energy and the effort and the patience, and when we don't give up, even if we encounter difficulties along the way, we have the possibility to become authorities in the sector that Saturn is placed in our natal chart. And maybe even further down the line, we can teach others because we have become authorities. Saturn many times is also about endings, and the Saturn return is a time of endings for many people. You could say that we're ending our young adulthood chapter. A lot of people actually get married during their Saturn return. They have kids during their Saturn return. They change careers during their Saturn return. So you could say that this in itself involves the closing of a chapter. Some people get divorced during their Saturn return. The natal chart, they say that the natal chart comes into its own after we go through our first Saturn return, because we've basically experienced a full cycle of energies in the incarnated reality. Saturn wants to teach us, but how should I put it? Saturn is not the fun teacher. Jupiter is the fun teacher. Mercury might be the witty teacher. Saturn is the you're not good enough and you got to try harder. And I'm not discussing this with you any further. That's the type of teacher that Saturn is. I'd say. Saturn teaches us also about failure about experiences, and I really would love for us to rephrase and reframe failure as experience. Because what is failure? What is failure? I mean, I feel like experiences are only a failure when we judge ourselves very harshly through the eyes of the, I don't know, cultural norms, cultural conditioning, and so on. I know that people are sending questions, and I am going to go back to them because I see that there's quite a few of you here, and I'm so grateful that you've joined live, even though we had a few technical difficulties to start with. So I'm gonna start sharing my own Saturn return stories. Who is going through their Saturn return right now? People with Saturn and Pisces, as I said. So those of you born between May 1993 until the 29th of June 93, and the 28th of January 94 until the 6th of April 96. And some folks might be going through their second Saturn return. This is the people born between the 23rd of March 64 until the 16th of September 64. And those of you born between the 15th of September 64 until the 3rd of March 1967. Ta-da! So that's these are the folks who are now going through through their Saturn return, and I hope my experiences, my stories can be useful, can provide maybe a little bit of information as to what you can expect from your Saturn return. So going back to my Saturn return, my Saturn is in Aquarius in my 8th house, and it is the final dispositor of my natal chart. And yes, I also had that feeling that I was running out of time during my Saturn return. It felt like it is now or never. I have to commit to something. When? Now, because life doesn't wait for anyone. During the Saturn return, we generally become very aware of our age, and we become very aware of time, of the pressure of time, I'd say. What happened during my Saturn return? Remember, my Saturn is placed in the 8th house in Aquarius. It also rules my 7th house of relationships and one-to-one interactions. Probably one of the most important events that happened during my Saturn return was the fact that in 2020, I became a full-time consulting astrologer. So this is my job. This is my work. This is what I now do on a day-to-day basis. Up until that point, up until 2020, I was a part-time astrologer, so I was working with clients part-time, mostly on weekends, since 2016. So for a little over 4 years. But in 2020, I transitioned to being an astrologer full-time. What did that involve? Well, it involved me saying goodbye to the career that I had built for almost a decade, a little under a decade, in the advertising and marketing and social media space. So before becoming a full-time astrologer, I worked in public relations, in marketing, communications, and social media. I actually studied at university publishing. My apologies, advertising, public relations, and journalism. And after that, I worked for television channels. I worked in advertising agencies. I worked for a major publisher here in the UK. And it was a massive decision for me. I mean, basically to leave behind everything that I had built in the marketing and advertising space career-wise, to leave behind my expertise somehow, to leave behind basically everything that I had worked for since my days at university. Was it an easy decision? No. But at the same time, I don't know how to explain this, but I knew that I was done. I knew that I was done. I was actually for like a year or so before before my Saturn return began in 2020. I was contemplating wrapping up my career in the advertising space, in the advertising and marketing space. I had quite a few. I'm going to be very fair with you. This is a very personal video, by the way. I was having quite a few moral and ethical challenges. I don't know what your take is on advertising, and I know people are still going to do advertising regardless of whether myself or whoever continues or doesn't continue to work in this space. But I felt like I could no longer continue in good faith to work for certain brands, for certain companies. I felt like I could no longer continue to contribute to promoting their message, promoting their story to people when I did not believe in what they were selling. I did not believe that it was for the greatest good. I did not believe that they had people's best interest at heart. And I know maybe that sounds very, I don't know, maybe it sounds naive. Maybe it sounds, I don't know how it sounds. Like part of me was like, oh, whatever. Like the cynic in me was like, whatever. Like people are gonna continue to like advertise and the world's gonna carry on. And I get that. I absolutely get that. But I really have to say that for me, it no longer felt right. And, oh, sorry, I'm getting emotional. I don't know why I'm getting emotional. And this is a live video, so I can't stop it. I can see that there are a few people who resonate with this. Yeah, I just felt like I was turning into a hypocrite. So there was a part of me that really enjoyed what I was doing. So I enjoyed working with people in this space. I met some incredibly like smart and fun and talented people in this space. I enjoyed the more kind of like technical side. I was very much into analytics. I was very much into paid media. So there were a lot of numbers. I was crunching numbers. My Aquarius brain, my Mercury in Aquarius really thrived on all of this. But from a moral perspective, it was not for me. So I had actually taken the decision to wrap up my career in the advertising space before I was kind of like firmly convinced that I would be able to support myself from astrology, from my work that I was doing in the astrological space. This is where something magical happened, if you ask me. As soon as I wrapped things up in my old career, it felt like things absolutely took off for me from an astrological perspective. And I realized it was timing wise. I realized it was happening during my Saturn return. Jupiter was transiting Aquarius at the time as well, where I have 3 planets: my natal Saturn, my natal Sun, my natal Mercury, and Jupiter is the ruler of my midheaven, so of my career path. So I realized that from a timing perspective, I had a lot of astrological help. And I was still kind of like preparing. I told you that Saturn is my final dispositor in the natal chart. Saturn is the big boss. I was still kind of like preparing, not for the worst case scenario, but I had saved money. I was kind of like mentally preparing myself for things to kind of like take a while until they took off, for me to feel stable, like solid and stable, materially, financially. I mean, I have a mortgage to pay. I've got bills to pay. And some people might have said, why can't you just rely on your partner? Why? I can't really explain. Well, I can explain it. Basically, it is part of who I am to be able to be self-sufficient. It doesn't matter how well my partner is doing, how generous they are, how successful they are. It is an integral part of who I want to be. I want to be, and I am, a self-sufficient person. So some people might have said, just go ahead, just take the leap, just like say goodbye to your job in the corporate world and your husband's just gonna support you. And I absolutely know for a fact that had it come to it, had I not had, I don't know, like money to pay, I don't know, my bills or something, I know that he would have jumped in. I know that he would have had my back. He always has my back. But that was not the point. I had to do this and I had to prove this to myself. So I did it. I switched careers completely, fully during my Saturn return. And this is going to make me cry again. There's no going back. This is the best thing that I've ever done. So please forgive me if I start crying, because this is very, very emotional. It means a lot. It means a lot. Thank you for listening. I feel like this. I feel like this is a little bit of like therapy for me. As I said, this is a very personal, a very, very personal video, and I appreciate all the support and all the love. Thank you. Thank you. What else happened during my Saturn return? So I'm gonna carry on with my story. You have to remember that my Saturn return happened in the 8th house. And the 8th house is the house of psychological transformation. It is the house that is called the death and rebirth house. So what does that mean? Obviously, I didn't die. Yay, I'm here. But I had multiple, I kid you not, I had multiple, I don't know if I should call them breakdowns, but they did feel like breakdowns. They did feel like mentally, emotionally, psychologically, the world was crumbling. I cannot describe it in any other way. I felt overwhelmed. I felt overworked. Why did I feel overworked, you might ask? Well, because I left behind my full-time corporate job and I switched to being a full-time kind of like entrepreneur, business owner. I don't know if other people went through the same thing, but basically I felt like I couldn't say no to work. So I took on more work than I could physically handle. I was in a way afraid of saying no to clients, and that's one thing that your Saturn return is going to make you do. It's going to put you face to face with your fear, and the only way out of it is through it. You're just going to have to face it. You're just going to have to reorganize your life in such a way that you can work with it, and you're also going to have to just kind of like put effort at getting better at managing the fear that you're faced with. So I felt afraid that maybe I wouldn't get enough clients, that I wouldn't have money, that I would be left in a challenging position. So I said yes to work, to the point where I was at one point working until like stupid o'clock at night, so 1, 2 in the morning. And at some point I just had to say, you know what? No, this is gonna break you. So it cannot break you. You have to reorganize this whole thing. I slowly but surely started to gain the confidence to push back, to kind of like maybe allow for kind of like longer waiting times when it came to delivering client consultations and readings and so on. And the good news was that people kept on coming in. Clients kept on coming in, and slowly but surely I realized that my services are useful and valuable, and I started to build up that confidence. But it was a muscle that I had to train very, very, very hard, I want to say. Now, definitely a learning experience. Definitely, definitely, definitely. The eighth house is also the house of taxes. And this is an interesting one because I remember when I was younger, my husband would tell me, one day you might have your own company, you might be self-employed. And I used to say, no, I don't want that because it's so hard to pay taxes. It's so hard to file your own taxes. It's so hard to do this. It's so hard to do that. So I was really kind of like a little bit apprehensive and afraid to have the responsibility to be in charge of this sector of my life. Well, guess what happened during my Saturn return? I obviously had to pay my own taxes. I had to figure things out. I had to kind of like plan my money a little bit differently. I had to learn about taxes. And here I was doing the very thing that I said that I wouldn't do a while ago because it seemed too hard to me, and I just had to deal with it. I just had to roll with it. I actually made one of the biggest tax payments as a self-employed person during the month when Saturn conjunct my sun in the eighth house of taxes, and the sun is also the ruler of my second house of income. So I had to obviously give away, well, not give away, but as you do with taxes, I basically had to do the right thing, Saturn, and pay my taxes myself. And it might not sound like a big deal, but to me it was a very big deal because before I had to do this, I genuinely, maybe this is going to sound very strange, but when I was younger, I genuinely didn't feel competent enough to manage taxes, finances, and things like that. So I had to learn, and I had to face my fear. That was that. What else happened during the Saturn return? Well, we got a house, and our mortgage, together with my partner, Saturn transiting the eighth house, responsibilities shared. Financial responsibilities together with your partner's finances. We bought a house with a mortgage, obviously, and the mortgage is significant, and it's a massive responsibility, and basically we have to pay it. So here we are, kind of like having taken a mortgage for decades from now on. Saturn likes to do things in the long term. So Saturn's going to bring you a long-term responsibility. Here we are, my husband and I, taking on a massive joint responsibility that involves expenses. So very literal Saturn return in the eighth house. What else? So I told you I had some kind of like, I don't want to call them issues. I basically had a difficult time mentally and psychologically and emotionally with Saturn transiting the eighth house. Most of this happened in private. I didn't really talk about this with a lot of people because, hey, the eighth house is also the house of secrets. And yeah, I just felt like I had to deal with it myself or in private. I didn't really share a lot about this. I felt like I had to do something to regulate my inner state, my emotions, my mood, and to help me manage all the fears that were kind of like all of a sudden coming at me. I started meditating. And I know that I've mentioned this in the past on my channel. In 2020, I started meditating once a week. Slowly, right? A little bit. I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna try it out, see what this involves. Since 2022, so 2 years later, I've started meditating daily. So it's been over a year and a half since I've committed to doing this for my mental, emotional, general health, wellness, well-being, call it what you like. To say that it has made a massive difference in my life would be an understatement. I feel it's like together with astrology, because astrology is also a tool that has helped me tremendously to understand myself, to understand others. It's probably the one tool, the one tool that has, I feel like it has altered who I am from the inside. It's not easy. Meditation is definitely not easy in the beginning, and there's no secret. The secret is to just keep at it and to not judge yourselves. So there could be thoughts popping in your head. You could feel restless. You could feel like, oh, like I'm getting bored. You might not be able to do it for a long time to start with. I like guided meditations. So one of the most popular apps for guided meditations out there is Aura. And you know, I've talked about Aura on my channel. In terms of YouTube channels, I've mentioned this channel before. I follow him. I love his meditations. There's a guy on YouTube called Steve Nobel, Nobel, and his guided meditations are very much on the spiritual side. So if you're into that, and because you're here on this astrology channel, you might be very much into more spiritual meditations. So he works with angels and so on. I love them. I love this. I feel like they've changed something inside of me. So I highly recommend his channel. And also for those of you who are maybe more into more kind of like grounding meditations, connecting with the body and so on, Aura is a very good resource. Michael Seeley. No, I haven't heard of him, but I will look him up because I'm always on the lookout for good kind of like meditation channels. Same with journaling and any sort of like practice. If you want it to make a difference, you have to give it time. I think it took me like a few months at the very beginning to start like really seeing a difference. I highly recommend it. I can't speak highly enough of meditation. So I'm sorry. I know I just sound like any other spiritual person on the internet. But if it works, it works. And sometimes it's the most basic, straightforward things that if you do them consistently, you don't have to do a lot. You can do it for 5 minutes a day, 10 minutes a day. Do it consistently. Some days you might fall off the bandwagon. That's okay. Don't give up. Don't stop. Go back. Jump back on the bandwagon. That is the secret. That is the secret. That's going to make the highest amount of difference in your life. What else happened during my Saturn return? So you have to remember that my Saturn return happened in Aquarius, which is an air sign. I learned so much. Folks. So I actually got my certification in coaching. So I took a coaching course. I got my certification, and I feel like it is definitely something that has helped me in my work with clients, because I work with clients day to day right now. I know that someone asked me how far in advance I'm booked right now. So I'm taking bookings for November, for the first week of November. I got my certification in coaching. I also broadened, so in the past like 3 years, I broadened my astrological knowledge by studying medieval astrology. I studied some Hellenistic astrology as well, but mostly medieval astrology. I learned some new cool techniques from medieval astrology that have actually proven to work very well in my experience. Saturn is all about the classics and about tradition and about doing things in the tried and tested way. So I feel like it was very appropriate for me to go back to study the classics, the ancients in the astrological space more in depth. You know me, you know I don't agree with many of the teachings of traditional astrology, because traditional astrology comes from a time when, first of all, medicine was not necessarily that advanced. So if you got an infection, you were much more likely to die. If you were born as part of a specific, I don't know, like class or something like that, there was little to no social mobility. It was basically bad to do anything outside of the box, anything that's kind of like outside of the norm. So that's why I take away some of the techniques from medieval astrology, but I don't, and I will probably never follow to the letter what astrologers 500, 600, 700 years ago used to say, because it really, yeah, it really doesn't work. It really doesn't work like that. What else? What else happened during my Saturn return? Well, I felt alone. I felt fully, no matter how many people I had around me. Okay, give me 1 second, folks. No matter what happened around me, no matter how many, I don't know, social occasions, social events I had to attend, I felt alone. And many times during the Saturn return, we are likely to feel isolated. I felt like retreating in my own tower and focusing on my work. And many times it might just feel like the only thing that fulfills you during your Saturn return is your work. I started investing during my Saturn return in the 8th house. Now, the 8th house is also the house of investments. I'm gonna be very straightforward. I feel like I'm still learning, and I'm taking it very slow, and I'm playing it very cautiously. Probably also because Saturn is the ruler of my 8th house of investments. So I'm completely unable to offer any sort of recommendation on that front. But I took the first steps. I thought, you know what? I might as well learn about this because it might be useful, and maybe it's not something that I put into practice straight away, but I may need to understand this aspect a little bit better further down the line in my life. The 8th house is also the house of death, and I have to say I contemplated death during my Saturn return a lot. Give me 1 second, folks. Okay, perfect. So I thought about death a lot, everyone's death. The good news is that no one died. Maybe this sounds a little, I don't know if it sounds funny, if it sounds weird, if it sounds cynical. I don't know if I come across as harsh. But like so many people are generally afraid of Saturn transiting the 8th house because they immediately think about death, like literal physical death, quite a bit. And I'm gonna put it out there, like, I mean, death is a reality of life, and with Saturn transiting the 8th house, we are likely to face the reality of our death, of death in general. When I say our death, it doesn't mean that we're gonna die. It just means that we might think about the fact that we don't have infinite time. So Saturn makes us aware of the passing of time, of death, of decay, and all of these things. I contemplated death. I feel like I grieved a lot. Maybe I grieved, in what sense? I grieved for the part of me that was dying at the time. I can't really say. What else did I do during my Saturn return? I feel like I worked a lot around finding a sense of groundedness. And of centering myself, even when I'm facing my fear, even when I feel like I'm in crisis in some shape or form. Saturn in the 8th house opposed my natal Jupiter. So Saturn in transiting Aquarius opposed my natal Jupiter. Jupiter is also the ruler of my 6th house of work and health. What happened during this time? Well, I got the virus, the C virus. That we are not going to talk about ever again. And that was not fun because I lost my sense of smell, and I literally freaked out for the time that I lost it. I got it back, thank God, thank you Ginger, but it was not a fun time. I also got a crown for one of my teeth. It was something that I was supposed to do for a while and for actually like quite some time, and I finally did it. So Saturn also likes hard structures. Therefore, It's very common during the Saturn return to have work done on your on your teeth in some shape or form. And what else did I do? I quit my habit of social casual smoking. So I was never a smoker, but I did smoke casually every now and then. I don't know, when I was on holiday, sometimes when I would go out, and I quit that for good. So Saturn basically helped me end a habit that is in no shape or form one that I would recommend that you engage in. Let's see, what else? When Saturn conjunct my Mercury, because I also have my natal Mercury in Aquarius, I actually felt it quite hard to find my words, and I felt like I really had to like focus on choosing the right words, on expressing myself correctly. I also wrote my first course at the time when Saturn conjunct my natal Mercury. So kind of like Saturn came in and said, okay, you got to write this. You got to work on this. So I wrote my very first course, the Natal Chart Interpretation Masterclass, which is available to purchase on my website. When Saturn conjunct my Sun, so apart from the fact that I paid taxes, a massive kind of like, to me it felt massive because before that, the companies that I would work for paid my taxes for me. So when Saturn conjunct my Sun, I paid my taxes, and I also wrote my second course, Forecasting with Transits, which is another course that you can find on my website. You can purchase as a recording. I mean, maybe for some people it doesn't feel like a big deal to pay taxes. What do I mean by that? I've always paid taxes, but I had to pay them myself, like literally kind of like go in and do my kind of like tax assessment and all of that. So I really want to clarify, it doesn't mean that I didn't pay taxes up until this point, because I absolutely did. But because I was working for a company, I would get paid the amount of money that I was owed after they paid my taxes for me, because that's generally how it happens. I don't know how it's like in the US or in other places around the world. I'm based in the UK, and that's how it works here in the UK. So I do want to clarify, because some people are like, imagine paying taxes. So just putting it out there. I wanted to make sure that I clarified. Also, when Saturn conjunct my Mercury is the ruler of my IC. So in the natal chart, the IC, the angle in the chart connected with family, parents, roots. It is also connected with the father. So my father actually had the dreaded virus, and he had to spend some time in hospital, and it was not fun at all, but he made a recovery, and he is back to being 100% himself, which is fantastic. When Saturn transiting my 8th house squared my natal Pluto in the 5th house of enjoyment, I felt like old activities that used to bring joy, that I used to kind of like enjoy engaging in, were no longer as fulfilling as they used to be, and I generally found it quite hard to have fun, like overall. So I felt like it was almost kind of like easier for me to engage in my work rather than go out, have fun, connect with people, and so on. And last but not least, you have to remember that the 8th house is also the house of your partner's money. So for those of you who are in a relationship, the 8th house is connected with a partner's resources. My partner also had some lessons to learn around managing money, around investments, around valuing his resources, and out of his resources, I feel like his toughest lesson to learn was around valuing his time, I'd say. So the Saturn return also kind of like reflected in the life of my partner. I remember sometimes I was the one who would tell him, oh, maybe you should be a little bit more cautious here, or a little bit more cautious there. I felt like sometimes I was being the Saturn for him, or like playing the role of Saturn in his life. But ultimately, everyone is Everyone is responsible for their decisions, and everyone has to bear to deal with the consequences of their decisions. And last but not least, I told you that I contemplated death a lot during my Saturn return. There was an incident. So at the very, 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 very end of my Saturn return, so a few days actually, I think like a week before Saturn got out of Aquarius, we were on vacation, on holiday in Thailand. On our first day there, we were attacked with knives and a gun and robbed on the street in like a central area. So I talked about this like a while ago when it happened. It happened in March. I was in shock. I was completely traumatized. Nothing like this has ever happened to me in my life, and I know nothing like this will ever happen again. But to me, it felt like I faced fear. I faced death in like literally, like literal death. I feared for my life. I feared for both of our lives because I was together with my husband. That's hands down the scariest moment that I ever went through. Thankfully, nothing happened. I gave them all our money, obviously. It's like, here you go. And there were three young men, and they ran away. But yeah, I have no words. I literally have no words. I feel like now I did quite a bit of work with myself on kind of like clearing all of this out of my system. So now, not all of our money. So we had, to be very specific, I think we had like around like all the money, all the cash that we had in like on us. So all the cash that we had on us at the time, I think it was around like 250 pounds. That would be, I don't know, like $300 or something like that, because we had some cash and we obviously had our credit cards and stuff like that with us. So we had taken out some cash just to make sure that we have it in case we need to pay somewhere with cash, and we gave away our cash. So I gave them all of our cash, and they ran away. So yeah. That was probably the absolute scariest part of my Saturn return. But I felt like I was actually quite proud of myself because I acted very Saturnian, and I said, hold on a second. Here you go. No, I'm joking. I was literally screaming and crying. And I literally did this with my bag, and I kind of like turned it upside down for the money to fall out of it. So yeah. Needless to say, I'm not going back to Bangkok anytime soon, if ever. But I realize that's just our experience. It doesn't mean that it's going to happen to anyone else. But to me, it was like a sign that, okay, no, we're not coming back here. This is not for us. And that is the experience of my Saturn return, and I feel like I've spent a little bit longer than I thought I would spend taking you through all of these events. I'm gonna take a second to go through through some of the comments. I know that there were some people who I had to like remove or hide and block. Let's see what you folks have been talking about. Give me 1 second. Bear with me. Let's see. A book recommendation for a beginner. This is the one that I generally recommend. It is called Astrology Decoded by Sue Marilyn Fairbrother. A step-by-step guide to learning astrology. It's a very, very, very good book. I highly recommend it. You've got a lot of great info in it. What else? Lots of people sharing their experience, which I absolutely love. Crystal, oh my gosh. So Crystal had when her Saturn return happened in the first house of the physical body, she had to have her gallbladder removed. It showed her where she needed to change what she literally put into her physical body. So taking responsibility for her like well-being, but also kind of like maybe experiencing some restrictions in terms of what she put into the body. Hello, Said, in case you're still here. Saturn transiting Crystal in Alchemist's second house contributed or kind of like corresponded with her clearing debt and gaining in her profession. Yes, we love that. We love a good clearing of debt with Saturn transiting the second house. Is it true that if my natal Saturn is retrograde in the 8th house, you'll get success, career success later in life? Only if, Lucy, Saturn is the ruler of your house of career, or of your 6th house of day-to-day work, or of your 2nd house of income. So there has to be some sort of correspondence between Saturn and the career significators in your natal chart, or if Saturn aspects the career significators, such as the maybe aspecting the midheaven, or aspecting the ruler of the midheaven, or the ruler of the 6th house, and so on. Generally, Saturn delivers later in life, and either during or after the Saturn return. So I'm going to give you an example. Let's say you've got Saturn placed in your 2nd house of income. You might kind of like come into your own financially during or after the first Saturn return. Until then, you might feel like you're kind of like dealing with the harder lessons of managing money. Let's see, what else? Thank you, folks, for all your support, and thank you for sharing your experiences. People are saying, oh, about to have my 2nd Saturn return. What about Saturn return in the 7th house? So duty, commitment, responsibility, hard work in the area of relationships. And sometimes it might not be fun. And sometimes we might need to be very kind of like realistic about whether a particular relationship is what we want to build upon and experience for the next 3 decades of our lives. So sometimes that means hard work in the relationships. Sometimes that means removing some relationships from our life if they're not aligned with the foundation that we want to set for the next 3 decades. I'd say. Oh my gosh, some scary stories. Some really, really scary stories. Some people say that, so Sophie says that her Saturn return didn't feel that hard, but Pluto conjunct the moon was tough. Yeah, I had Pluto conjunct the moon as well, because my moon is in Capricorn. Not ideal. How long does a Saturn return last? Around 2.5 to 3 years, I'd say. Curious about the 11th house Saturn return potentials. So really kind of like doing a thorough cleanup in your circle of friends, in your community, in the groups that you're a part of, maybe joining specific kind of like communities that are aligned with your long-term goals, specific organizations that are aligned with your long-term goals, taking responsibility and being the organizer, the planner for a community, maybe also doing your duty towards a friend in some shape or form, and kind of like helping them carry a burden in some shape or form. I'd say these are some of the potentials for the Saturn return in the 11th house, and also being very realistic and pragmatic about the topic of friendship in general. So not kind of like lying to ourselves, not taking friendships casually and kind of like lightly, I'd say. So for instance, if you recognize that someone in your circle of friends is a bad influence, the Saturn return in your 11th house of friends says this person is dragging you down. So you might wanna cut ties with them. The Saturn opposition, well, the Saturn oppositions in general are times of culmination when it comes to some of the seeds that have been sown at the Saturn return. So you could kind of like see it as almost like a full moon phase of the Saturn cycle. You might need to make some adjustments to the foundation that you've built. You might also feel like one of the most important parts of your work that you've been putting in the Saturnian sector of your life, so wherever Saturn is placed, one of the most important parts of that work is done, is over. So that's kind of like coming to an end. Reorganizing, restructuring, rebuilding, and maybe also saying goodbye to some of the pillars that you have built in your life. Maybe saying goodbye to some responsibilities, I'd say. Saturn squaring Scorpio suns and being conjunct with Pluto in Scorpio 2. Scorpio is in the 8th house. So Saturn squaring your sun. Well, generally, you might feel in some shape or form like you're restricted from expressing yourself, from kind of like expressing your authentic, creative, individual self. You might also feel like you are challenged to really define who you want to be in this lifetime, what type of person you want to be in this lifetime, what is important to you, what type of leader you want to be in this lifetime. Restrictions from figures of authority. You might feel tension and a sense of restriction from maybe bosses, for instance, I'd say. You might feel challenged by those with authority to prove yourself, to really prove what you are made of. Second Saturn return in the 6th house, doing what I said I would never do, and that's work with my father. Wow. There you go. So the Saturn return in the 6th house is generally about work and job and kind of like doing the hard work. My mom is actually going through her second Saturn return in the 6th house, and earlier this year she had to change jobs. Well, actually twice, because at her previous job she wasn't getting enough work, so her financial situation was suffering, so she had to do the hard thing and say, okay, I like it here, but I have to go work someplace else because this is not working in the 3D reality for me, so I've got bills to pay. Are Saturn returns supposed to be hard, or can someone have an easy Saturn return? What is hard? It depends. I'm going to say that the more Saturnian you are natally, naturally. So let's say you've got natally a lot of energy in Capricorn, Aquarius. Maybe you've got a Capricorn ascendant. Maybe you've got an Aquarius ascendant. Maybe you've got Saturn on an angle, on the ascendant, on the midheaven. That means, or maybe you've got Saturn in conjunction with your moon, with your sun. That means that you're natally more used to Saturn's energy. So a Saturn return might not actually phase you that much. You might be like, yeah, this is business as usual. That doesn't mean that it's easy, but it could be easier. And they do say that a Saturn return is likely to be a little bit easier in Saturn's own sign, so Capricorn, Aquarius, or in its sign of exaltation in Libra. The October horoscope is coming this week, folks. I know it's Wednesday, so by Friday, the latest, I'm gonna put it out there. I did finish filming it, but I still need to ask my husband really nicely to edit it, because he's doing that for me. Difference between first and second return. I mean, the first return the first Saturn return is setting the foundation for what you want to build for the next 3 decades in the 3D reality. The second Saturn return is about saying, I've proven myself, I've done my work, I no longer need to prove myself to I don't know, society and so on. What do I want my legacy to be? It's a time when we start kind of like thinking about retirement, when we start thinking about, that doesn't mean that we retire, but we start thinking about it, and we start thinking about how we're passing the baton. The second Saturn return is about us really stepping into our position as the wise guides that have a lot of experience to share. And we're kind of like passing the baton to those who are starting off in life and maybe dealing with some of the challenges that we've dealt with, and we can guide them through this. What is some advice that you'd give to someone who is about to start their who is going to experience their Saturn return in the 8th house? Prepare yourself to face your fears. Work on your mental and psychological well-being, and I genuinely mean work. A lot of people actually go to therapy when the Saturn return is happening in the 8th house, maybe also in the 12th house. Maybe be prepared for others to kind of like rely on you financially a little bit as well. Maybe for you to have to help them financially. It doesn't necessarily mean that you have to. It has to be kind of like indicated by the entire chart, by other aspects in the chart as well. I think these are the big ones, if you ask me. Let's see, what else? A Saturn return on the IC, so responsibilities at home, taking responsibility for restructuring the home life, family life, maybe leaving a home behind, taking responsibility for a parent. These are a few things. Honey also left 2 jobs with her Saturn return happening in the 6th house of day-to-day work, just like my mom. Christina, thank you. And Tisa as well. Saturn, the North Nodes, Sun, Mercury, and MC in Virgo. Saturn will be opposing all of these in the next couple of years. Should I be worried? Not worried, but realistic about what you need to leave behind in all of these particular, let's say, aspects of your life. So career, identity may be connected with the work that you do. Really kind of like recognizing and acknowledging what your limits and limitations are, I'd say. What would you suggest for people who've got Saturn in the 11th house? Make friends with people who are older, generally, and do put effort into finding your people, finding your tribe, I'd say. Saturn return in the 4th house, just like Saturn on the IC, taking responsibility for the family, for a parent, maybe working on something concrete connected with your home life, family life, private life. Some people buy houses or renovate houses or start a family or help a parent to deal with the practical aspects of life. And Saturn in the 10th house, really committing to a long-term path professionally, taking on increased duties and responsibilities at work. And if you're not in the career that you want to build upon for the next, well, maybe decades, Saturn transiting the 10th house could say, now is the time to end a career chapter. Actually working with older people. Okay, that's interesting. I love that. Fell in love during the Saturn return, didn't work out. Some hard lessons sometimes during the Saturn return. It shows us where we need to learn from experience. And I repeat, sometimes experience also means that things may not necessarily work out. Saturn opposing the Sun and during the return. Well, a few things. Saturn in aspect to the Sun generally makes us feel like we have to work really hard to prove ourselves through concrete achievements. Saturn opposing the Sun could also mean that you're kind of like taking a distance from an important male figure in your life, such as the father or a grandfather or someone like or someone like that. You could also feel restricted by others in expressing your unique identity, I'd say. But this is where I would become aware of how maybe you're also the one who's allowing them to restrict you. Maybe you just need to cut yourself loose in some shape or form. The IC is the angle in the chart. The midheaven IC, so it's an axis. The IC is an angle in the chart that is connected with roots, family, the past, private life, where we kind of like set down roots. I'd say. I didn't start my channel during my Saturn return. I started it in 2016, but I became a full-time astrologer during my Saturn return. I was a part-time astrologer up until that point. Definitely there can be some very, very big wins during the Saturn return. But first we have to go through the hard bit. I do want to put it out there. Sometimes it's not fun, but it is rewarding, and the rewards are likely to last and to stand the test of time. Folks, I want to thank you so much for joining me tonight for this impromptu live. I am going to jump off the live, and I want to send you all a massive hug. Lots of love. It's been wonderful speaking with you. I know we had a few trolls, but hey, we blocked them, so off they go. And I look forward to connecting with you live again in the future. I'll leave you to it.